So the other day, I was out on the lake doing a spot of fishing when it hit me. Wait a minute. Why am I here? I hate fishing. And why is the water red? Why is it raining blood? And why can I only seem to catch DVD copies of Grown Ups 2? Anyway, long story short, I was in hell. It was a whole Bill and Ted sort of thing, but that's all in the past now. On an unrelated note though, fishing sucks. Why do you want to do it so bad? Stop it. Hi, I like video games. RPGs, puzzlers, Metroidvanias, simulators, horrors, adventures, stealth, not survival, rhythm, FPS, education, party, platformer, you name it, I'll play it. Except fishing. Don't name that one. Look, I'm gonna get in on this one real quick, but fishing, just the entire activity as a whole, is an atrocity. I'm gonna be real, I've never understood the appeal of fishing. I've tried fishing in real life, and I just don't get it. Look at this. What about this do you want? Is it the ice-cold breeze? That disgusting lake smell we're all aware of? This bit? Hell, I've even tried VR fishing in an attempt to figure out the authentic R&R experience without so much waiting, being cold, damp, and covered in worms with a hook through my ear in the emergency room, but quit the moment my immersion broke when I couldn't eat my catch raw from my hand. Long story short, I don't like fishing, so as you'd expect, I don't tend to play any fishing games. And this sentiment is all well and good, until I'm doing 30 miles an hour down Paper Mario Promenade and get blindsided by a giant fish on wheels on a giveaway at the intersection. For an activity that's known to be one of the most tedious, painful, and boring ways to feed your family, I simply don't understand why every video game ever seems to include a fishing minigame. Now, games like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley get a pass because they make sense. Games like these center around exploring nature and having a calm old time, and whether you like it or not, which I don't, just for the record, fish are a part of nature, and fishing is calming. Supposedly. If I go into a game like that, I'm almost expecting fishing. I might not like it, but I'm expecting it to be there because it'd almost be weird if it wasn't. If I'm playing an intense, high-octane first-person shooter, like Far Cry 5 though, I'm playing Far Cry 5 to blast angels in the face in Trailer Park, to run down cougars with an ATV, or to sit around for 5 minutes instead of arresting Jared Leto to get the alternate ending, so I can say I beat the game just without putting in any actual effort, not to fish. Now, some might say that fishing is a commonplace inclusion in games like these to break up the action and provide a break from the countless hours of terrific fun that is angel blasting. But considering I go into the game to blast angels, I'm happy enough to keep blasting angels. I don't need a break from blasting angels because blasting angels is what I set out to do when I loaded up Angel Blast 5 8 hours earlier. Just imagine you're playing Uncharted, swinging through the jungle, shooting down the bad guys when Sully appears and all like, "God damn it, Nate, I wanna do some goddamn fishing, god damn it. A man's gotta eat." And then the pair drop into a spot of fly fishing right in the middle of the militia ambush.
Well, now, this is more like it. Nate, are you even listening to me?
Why does the action need to be broken up anyway? If you need a break from the action in an action game, then your best bet is to stop playing the game. Otherwise, you're just not playing the game by not playing the game. You following? To be fair though, the inclusion of a fishing minigame isn't inherently an issue, but rather how poorly they seem to be implemented more often than not. As far as I'm concerned, there's a major difference between fishing games solely based around fishing and fishing minigames in video games based around literally anything else. The reason games like Sega Bass Fishing, Deadliest Catch the Game, or Ace of Seafood exist is so that people that want that authentic fishing experience have something to play. For some reason, however, every video game ever somehow manages to forget this and winds up including their own fully functional fishing experience. Games like Far Cry 5, Red Dead Redemption, an unhealthy percentage of Yakuza games, Personas 4 and 5, and Final Fantasy 15 all include these really robust, highly detailed fishing games with a plethora of rods, bobbers, and baits which can be used to catch an even more plethora of fish of all different shapes and sizes and rarities and edibilities. Just stop. Stop it. Why are they so complicated? Half the time with these things it's like I'm playing an entirely separate game. There's just that much disconnect. Going from galloping through the countryside, stealing gold, robbing trains, and flooring wealthy Englishmen to fishing, just doesn't feel natural. It's like it's an entirely different system with completely different rules and too much to learn. The optimal fishing minigame should be simple and easy to understand. Sure, it can have depth and progression, just make it easy for the player to access and play at their own will. If you're going to spend half the development time putting together a shoehorn fishing system, at least keep everything the player needs to progress within that system. Otherwise, it's only going to cut off any progression the people that do actually want to play these minigames can actually make. As if fishing is a chore, something you have to go back and do whenever you find a slightly better rod or ever so wriggly a worm. Take Persona 5 for instance. Not only is the fishing minigame here entirely optional regardless of playstyle, hell I didn't even know it was something you could do until 90 odd hours into the game, more on that later though, but everything you need to catch all the best fish is unlocked entirely within the minigame. No need to go out and craft rods or find bait recipes while dungeon crawling. If you want, you could pretty easily sit down and catch every fish within 40 minutes or so, regardless of how far you are into the game. That's not to say it's a particularly great minigame, but at least it keeps to itself, much like anyone who asks for this should. Final Fantasy XV, like so many JRPGs for it, includes a side of fish, but unlike many JRPGs before it, is able to do so in a way that feels a bit less tacked on by merging it with some of the game's core mechanics. See, each of your 4 party members have their own special skill. Gladio has survival, Prompto has photography, and Ignis has cooking. But who needs cooking anyhow when you could chow down on some dread grouper tartar smashed up by main man Noctis, whose ability is of course fishing. In some ways, having the main character enjoy fishing like this sort of feels like a forced attempt to make constant fishing feel a little less like a mandatory JRPG inclusion, but it definitely helps it feel like more of a personal, in-character activity with a spot of team building to boot. While not exactly the most enthralling, I do also enjoy the small snippets of dialogue you'll get from amongst your team as you fish, as well as how the rest of your party jumps in and helps with bigger catches. It's all very fun and it really helps sell that close-knit road trip feel the game has going on, so it's a plus from me. Both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask stand out as the only passable fishing games in the entire Zelda franchise. The fishing in Twilight Princess does suck, sorry to say. I definitely remember needing to read a tutorial to figure out how to use the fishing rod properly, so that doesn't exactly bode well, but also as games that are able to naturally implement fishing minigames in a bit of a different way. While the process of fishing is fairly standard, it's what you can do around it to manipulate your odds that make it interesting. You can use your iron boots to scout the pond, freely climb up higher or wade into deeper water to find the optimal spot to cast from, corral the fish into better locations, or even just Z-target the fish to keep track of the one you want to catch. And it's this ability to utilize core gameplay mechanics that lets the shift between regular gameplay and fishing gameplay feel significantly less jarring than usual, especially compared to something like Red Dead Redemption 2, which forces you to learn an entirely new gameplay system if you're just in the mood for a simple McDonald's Filet-O-Fish only $12.60 with a medium drink and chips. McDonald's. Majora's Mask 3D expands on this further, with a much wider array of fish to catch based on which fishing hole you're at, the time of day, which of the 3 days it is, and which mask you have equipped. For instance, if you go to the swamp fishing hole on the first or final day and equip the Bremen mask, you'll be able to catch yourself a cuckoo fish, which is frankly hilarious. Some more of these amazing special fish include a mini Jabu Jabu, a fish called the Great Fairy Fish, a swordfish, or, you know, just an entire shark, as per usual. The best part about all of this though is that aside from the 2 heart pieces in Ocarina of Time, both of these minigames are entirely optional as well, as even if you do choose to play them, the advantage you'll have over those that don't is barely palpable, which is always the way it should be. To many, fishing appeals to the collector. Fish are something to collect, like Jiggies in Banjo-Kazooie or Toads in Paper Mario. The problem with fishing compared to those collectibles is that fishing is a very deliberate activity. You have to choose to fish if you want fish. It isn't something you can just stumble upon accidentally. It's not something that's going to happen if you don't go out of your way to unnaturally disturb the typical flow of gameplay to make it happen, which is fine for some, but not for many others. Especially when fishing, or any other disruptive side activity for that matter, offers major advantages for those who partake. Easily one of the worst offenders in this regards is Terraria's fishing mechanics. Look, as much as I love Terraria, it has this awful habit of pushing things a little too far and making everything way too complicated, even with the help of a guide. The walkthrough type, not the bury 6 feet under at the start of the game instead of building house for type. If, of all things, in a game packed to the brim with boss fights, exploration, hell trudging, corruption cleansing, golf, unicorn riding, beach ball bouncing, party having, costume wearing, and wave fighting, fishing stands out to you, then prepare for some of the worst prep work imaginable. If you are after a specific kind of fish, not only will you need to find a suitable body of water, often in a very specific biome of a very specific size, but you also need the right rod and bait, some of which take an unnecessary amount of time to find the ingredients for. Even if you decide to spend all that time making sure these circumstances are perfect, there's no way to know right away because it's all RNG. Much to everyone's dismay, this is usually the most annoying part of fishing minigames as a whole, but in Terraria, the chances of luck being on your side are, ironically, not very high. Minus a handful of bosses which can only be summoned via fishing, there are a grand total of 118 catches, 29 of which can be used in crafting a number of very useful items and potions, 26 of which are mystery crates, so another layer of RNG right there, and 22 of which are some of the most useful items in the entire game, such as the sawtooth shark, the lava absorbent sponge, the demon conch, and the bottomless lava bucket, all of which are extremely rare catches. Point is, if you understandably don't have the patience to engage with such an arbitrary, boring gameplay mechanic, then there's a chance you'll be put at a severe disadvantage to those that do. But only a chance at that, because it's still all random. On the bright side, one of the fish you can catch is called the rock lobster, so f*** everything I just said. Or how about Fable?
Oh, you're no fun at all. What's that for?
If you want to unlock the best armor in the game, you'll need to hunt down all 25 silver keys hidden around Albion, 8 of which can only be found by indulging in its bare bones, single button, occasionally infuriating fishing minigame, you guessed it, at least 8 times. If this minigame did anything good at all though, it was giving players a common enemy and some motivation to uncover several, not one, but several cloning exploits to ensure that no new players should have to suffer through the same fresh hell they did. Long story short, if you need to include a fishing minigame, you need to also include options. Lock items behind fishing, sure, but at least provide alternatives to people that don't want to participate in those activities. In stark contrast to either of those games, however, is Sea of Thieves, which at heart is a game all about providing options. Seeing as the fishing rod is provided to you from the very start of the game, all you really need to do is find bait. You can dig it up using a shovel, but it's also very easily found in barrels alongside every other resource you could ever need in the game. So as long as you spend a bit of time looking for other resources as well, you should never really be in short supply. Just for the love of God, don't eat it. Once you catch some fish, there isn't really much you can do with them. You can of course cook them up and eat them, a slightly better alternative to the fruit you find in barrels, but you can also sell them to boost your reputation with the Hunter's Call faction. As with any activity in the game, whether that be fighting ghost ships, hunting for treasure, transporting product, or taking care of bounties, it's there as a means to make money if you want. But if you don't, there's still plenty of other options to suit your playstyle right around the corner. Plus, if I'm gonna be honest, the fact that it doesn't force you to fish in any capacity whatsoever makes me a little more compelled to give it a go every now and then, and I must say, parking out in the middle of the ocean, bobbing over the waves to a spot of fishing can actually be a little relaxing for 5 seconds, before I go back to shooting chickens for no good reason. Let's be real though, those are just a handful of good fishing minigames in a figuratively literal sea of bad ones. The thing is, if a developer was going to include a fishing system with hundreds of rods, baits, and fish to find, you would think that they would at least try to make it interesting enough so that you wouldn't get bored less than 2 casts in. Sadly, however, this often isn't the case, which I've theorized is linked to a few different factors. First of all, water. Adding water around a world is one of the easiest ways to not only make it feel lived in, but also to create natural barriers for the player. Of course, with so much water, it would almost seem odd not to include some sort of side activity involving it. Obviously, some sort of water drinking minigame is off the table, WarioWare's already got a monopoly on that, and activities like surfing or, I don't know, waterboarding tend to feel a bit out of place more often than not. Plus, those kind of things sound like a lot of work, so f*** that. Generally speaking, if you need to add a minigame, fishing is a shoo-in. It's a simple activity and it's been around since the start of time. It's the reason why games set way in the past, like RuneScape, and games set in the distant future, like Nier Automata, can both include fishing minigames without feeling out of place. But why should Blizzard spend any more than 8 minutes developing World of Warcraft cart with terrific gameplay but minimal potential for rewards, when they could instead just bump like 12 keys and slap together a fish in the barrel bottom cast and wait 1 button fishing minigame with hundreds of fish and the mere illusion of gameplay content? Let's be real, fishing minigames are low on resources and easy to make, and the best part is that once you've got a system in place, it's easy enough to then take said system and create a bunch of spots that can be used throughout the game as well. For, you guessed it, even less effort. And look at you, you're on a roll, you guessed it again, something to tack on the back of the box as a gameplay feature. That's not to say all fishing minigames are lazy, but that is to say most are. Games like Far Cry 5, Final Fantasy, Yakuza, Red Dead Redemption, and Twilight Princess all use the tried and tired struggle system, by which you cast, wait for a bite, struggle with it to wear it down the fish's energy, and reel it in without snapping the line. The best part about this system is that it gives the effect of a deep gameplay system by drawing out how long it takes to catch each fish and artificially boosting playtime, when it could be a lot quicker, punchier, and generally good with just a bit more creativity. But why give a fuck pretending to give a fuck when you could as easily not give a fuck? Animal Crossing, Pokemon, Temtem, Don't Starve, Minecraft, Terraria, Torchlight, WoW, RuneScape, Monster Hunter, The Sims, Nier, what do you want, Substance? These are just a small selection of games that use the classic cast and press A method. In games like Animal Crossing, Pokemon, or Don't Starve, fishing is merely a means to an end, to fill out the museum, to poach the wildlife, or to, well, not starve. And as part of a bigger picture, this method is perfectly passable. In other games, however, where fishing acts as a more tacked-on standalone system, it's a bit trout. Point is, regardless of which method you pick, a fishing game will always be one of the easiest systems to implement. And it's definitely not like there's any shortage of inspiration or anything like that, so long as you don't mind being the sea bass of side content. As much as I despise the flood of lackluster, boring fishing games, a lot of players do like them, and there's a few reasons for this. When it comes to Japanese games in particular, there are actually a handful of really logical reasons as to why fishing is so prevalent. For one, fishing is and always will be an integral part of Japanese culture. A lot of Japan's main diet is made up of fish, raw at that, it's just more convenient. Therefore, it only makes sense that fishing would be a common leisure activity in Japan, and therefore find its way into a lot of games made over there. On top of that, a very large percentage of Japan is confined to cities, where activities like bug catching or fishing are very difficult to experience in person. It's the very reason Animal Crossing was made, in fact, after creator Kazuya Iguchi moved to Kyoto away from family, friends, and nature.
Smug aura.
Of course, as these Japanese games have spent years revealing, this rabid obsession with fishing exists in part throughout the West as well, whether that be to experience something they can't in real life, as a way to spend more time in their favourite games, or because some people do somehow genuinely enjoy spending hours upon hours collecting every type of fish 9 times over. As much as people don't want anything to do with fishing, there's still a damn good reason it pops up just as much in Western releases as it does in Japan. It's like the new farming pack that released for The Sims 4 a while ago. I certainly didn't want it, nor do I know anyone else that did. But one look at the reception and it's easy to tell that there are a lot of people who genuinely love it, as mundane as it all sounds.
It's another book for Mario.
Same goes for fishing. For every 90 people that despise it, there's a solid 3.6 that don't. It may only be a minority, but it's a very vocal minority, which is really all it takes when it's typically so easy to implement. If there's room for side activities, you'll bet there'll be people clamoring for their nearest vat of chum, because in reality it does boost playtime, no matter how artificial. Plus, it's a great compromise. It'll appease a relatively decent chunk of the audience, and the devs are able to boast an additional gameplay feature without spending too much extra time. And finally, let's be real, deep down, we're all disgusting cave people with disgusting primal urges, and fishing is just one of those. Which probably explains some of my earlier actions. But quit the moment my immersion broke when I couldn't eat my catch raw from my hand. But who needs cooking anyhow when you could chow down on some dread grouper tartar? Raw at that, it's just more convenient. But it's also the only game on the list where you can grab a speeding fish with your bare hands and force feed them a jungle's worth of bananas. In the grand bream of things though, fishing minigames aren't really all that offensive. Aside from a few unbalanced or gratuitously enforced instances, there are still plenty out there that give me a little bit of faith in the industry. As interesting as it was to see just how many games use the same few worn and boring methods while researching this video, it's been equally as interesting to see just as many games attempt to break the mold ever so slightly. Stardew Valley is without a doubt one of the greatest modern examples of unique fishing minigames. Not only is it very simple and easy to understand, but it's legitimately quite fun. I mean, I still don't want to play it, but at least it's bearable. All you gotta do is tap and hold to keep the green bar over the fish icon until it's caught, which can range from easy, quick catches to holy shit, my reflexes. There's even a little risk versus reward system involved to help spice up up your fishing life in the form of treasure chests. If one of these pops up while you're engaged in battle, you can choose to hover over it and reel it in as well. But make sure you only do this if you're going to have enough time to get back to the fish, otherwise you'll lose it all. The best part of all this though is that it's one of the very few fishing minigames you can legitimately get good at. While you can of course level up your fishing skill or purchase a handful of different rods and bobbers to make your time a bit easier, when it gets down to it, how long it takes to reel in the fish, or even if you reel it in at all, is entirely based on the player's personal skill level, not arbitrary features like line strength or fish stamina. Considering something like the Animal Crossing formula would have generally been accepted, even expected from a game like this, it's amazing to play a fishing minigame that doesn't give me clam flashbacks for once. Eric Barone, I could socially distantly kiss an anchovy named after you on the mouth right now. Chances are we wouldn't even have Stardew's fishing system if it weren't for Breath of Fire, however. Breath of Fire, or Breath of Fire 3 in particular, delivers one of the deepest, most addictive fishing minigames of all time that mere explanation couldn't do justice. But I've got nothing better to do, so I'm just going to do it anyway. Okay, so stage 1, casting. This bar here, the longer it is, the further you'll cast. Once your bob is out in the deep blue, it's time to move it around and attract a fish. Don't let it get too deep in that deep blue though, because if it touches the lake bed in this diagram here, you'll lose your bait and look like an idiot to all your friends. If a fish decides to bite, you'll end up in this great little sub-game that's a bit of a mix between Stardew Valley and the classic fight and reel style. To reel in your fish, you need to move this little green bar left and right to stop the line from breaking. You'll also have to pay attention to the position of the fish icon, as the closer the fish is to the right, the more it's fighting, and the closer it is to the left, the quicker you'll be able to pull it in. Below, there's also this thin red line, which represents the fish's stamina. Keep the fish within the bar to wear that down, and you'll be able to start reeling fish fight free. If that weren't enough already, then good, because there's also this insane scoring system, tons of unlockable rod and bait varieties, as well as these odd rhythm-based technical moves you can pull off to attract more difficult fish. Yet, aside from one story-based instance, it's entirely optional. Normally, I'd be completely against such unnecessary depth in a piddly little fishing game. But that's the thing, it isn't piddly. It's so substantial in fact that the 4th game's fishing system was released as a standalone mobile game in Japan. It's so creative and has no right to be anywhere near as addictive as it is. Plus, it's got some of the funkiest fishing music I've ever heard, so that's a major plus. Tower Unite's fishing minigame is very reminiscent of Breath of Fire as well, but this time, it's in 360! I need water after that. After choosing where to cast your line, you'll be able to move your bobber around with your mouse to attract a fish, and once it's hooked, you engage in this really great Stardew on Roid style sequence until the fish is caught. Move your mouse to keep the fish in the zone, it's really that simple, but the use of a mouse cursor as opposed to buttons gives you more direct control than any other game here and does wonders in keeping it snappy, quick, and fun without feeling unfair. Better yet, the fish you catch can even be displayed in your condo in an aquarium, or if you prefer, flailing around on the floor, which is lovely and gives me more incentive to actually fish aside from just money with a nice personal touch. It's a bit like showing off your museum in Animal Crossing, except much more customizable with a much higher potential for Danny DeVito. Actually wait, no, scratch that. But then we get to the more unique experiences on offer, such as Shovel Knight. Or what about Warframe, which swaps out the traditional string and stick for a much manlier pointy stick? Spearfishing's the name of the game here. Simply walk up to a body of water, wait for a fish to rear its head, and pelt your spear right into it. It's quick, it's satisfying, and most importantly, it's a fun twist on the traditional formula. If Warframe doesn't make fishy genocide easy enough, however, then Yakuza's got you covered. After 5 installments of relatively tame fishing minigames, Yakuza 6 finally takes a more Yakuza approach with an even more crazy take on spearfishing. It's basically just non-rails shooter where you nail a bunch of idiot fish over the course of 3 levels with the occasional boss thrown in, so that's fun. It's very arcadey, very unique, and very, very Yakuza. Plus, fishing is one of the best ways to make money in Yakuza 6, as it often is with many other games, so it helps that it's actually crazy fun for once. These 3 games, but especially Yakuza 6's offering, almost feel like a subversion of the trope, as if it's just there to tick the checkbox for a fishing minigame. I mean, obviously it's a JRPG, so it needs a fishing game, but nobody said which type of fishing it had to be, and that's great. So yeah, whether or not all fishing minigames will eventually learn to be a bit more inventive is yet to be seen. Oh my god, that's a good pun. I read that, I wrote this ages ago and I didn't realize how good of a pun that was until right now. Whether or not all fishing minigames will eventually learn to be a bit more inventive is yet to be seen, but if what we've seen here today is anything to go by, they probably won't. In the end, when it comes to fishing minigames as a whole, yeah, it's still pretty carp, but at least there are a handful of games willing to try and bring something new to the table. So as long as games like these keep existing, a reason for me to avoid burning down the local fish market will too. That being said though, this video is getting a lot longer than I thought it would, and I still have like a billion standout fishing minigames to talk about, so... Pike-ning Round? Yeesh, no, that was my worst one yet. That's my bad. You ever want to fight a dragon with a motion-controlled fishing rod in your bathroom sink?
In 480p?
Yeah, well, good, because 3DS AR Games has you covered. If the whole dragon and bathroom sink thing doesn't really work for you, then you could just try We Play's fishing minigame, but you could also move in with a pile of wet noodles if you're that desperate for an awful social life. Vacation Simulator doesn't really have a fishing minigame so much as it does a minigame involving fish, but it's also the only game on the list where you can grab a speeding fish with your bare hands and force feed them a jungle's worth of bananas, so it's at least worth mentioning for that. The Switch port of Miitopia has a fishing option where you can send 2 Miis out fishing. The gameplay is basically non-existent and they don't even fish half the time. I mean, I hate fishing, but the one thing I hate more is getting all riled up about the idea of fishing, only to not go fishing in the end and have nowhere to direct my rage. Wind Waker's a game set entirely on the ocean and there isn't a single fishing minigame to be found. It's got battleships, auctions, piggy sitting, acupuncture, mail sorting, paragliding, but no fishing? It's so obvious, but it isn't here. Now I'm just conflicted. Breath of the Wild. Much better. Hitman 2 has a cool little achievement for reverse fishing, so that's neat. Plus, I can take out my anger on fishermen using a fish, so that's pretty cathartic. Final Fantasy VI includes the series' first look at fishing. Not really sure what Square Enix was on when they made this one though, because you basically just walk up to the ocean and grab them out of the sea with your bare hands. The idea is to grab as many as you can to feed to this dying Sid guy to keep him alive, not that you get anything for saving him though. They don't even make an attempt to give you sanity back later on, so at that point you might as well just let him die. At which point your character goes and throws himself off a cliff, but survives anyway. Can't fish properly, can't, I don't know, jump off a cliff properly. Should I cut that? I'm not cutting that, that's a terrific joke. My Sims Agents for the Nintendo DS has a fishing minigame for some reason. It's pretty stinky, so about on par with the rest of the game, but it makes funny music when you drag the bobber around, so that's nice. Deadly Premonition. Ew! And then of course, there's Sonic Adventure. Yep, that one's for another time. Of course, I couldn't end the video without at least mentioning the objective best fishing minigame ever made. That's right, it's time for Mario's Game Gallery. Go fish!
Looks like it's time to go fishing again.
Yeah, baby, I'm betting Goomba. Half my chips is gonna pay off, just you wait.
Look, I don't got no tonsils.
Hand over the booze, Mario, you fool!
Okie dokie, princess.
Didn't see that one coming, did ya?
Look, I'm a video game.
Alright, here we go, putting it all on this last card. Everything I own, my entire livelihood.
Uh-oh, guess what time it is? It's time for you to tie.
Do you have any big booze? That's another book for Mario.
Ooh, you're stinky.
Oh, yeah, now that's my primal urge.